name's Alyssa, and I'm going to teach you how to make a healthier chocolate chip banana bread. My kids love this recipe. It's been around for a number of years, since they were babies is when I first discovered it. And I made it a little bit healthier by using applesauce instead of oil. I use a little bit less sugar, and I also use whole wheat flour where I can. You can use regular flour too, but again, the whole point is to make it a little bit healthier than your regular banana bread. This is a perfect snack for kids. They love it for breakfast, and they also love it for school snacks. I usually make 2 loaves because it doesn't last long. So let's get started on how do we make this bread. So first, you're going to start with cracking 2 eggs. I always like to have a bowl for waste to the side because it's really not convenient to keep running back and forth to the garbage can. So you're going to take 2 eggs. I'm going to use my fork, and I'm just going to beat them up. Then I'm going to use 3 bananas. Now I know these look really nasty. These are frozen bananas. Now I don't know about you, but whenever I buy bananas, there's always that 1 or 2 stragglers that people or the kids deem as too ripe or too brown or whatever the reasons are, kids, right? So I toss them in the freezer, and then I save them for things like this. So three of them. Now you're going to notice, besides being gross, they're also very watery and very soft. But that's what we want for banana bread. See how they just slink in there? So I'm going to empty out 3. Now if this really grosses you out, you can also pre-peel them and then freeze them, and that way you don't get the brown peel. As you can see, it's not brown inside. It's just that when the peel gets cold, it turns this funky color. So we're just going to put the 3 bananas inside here and just toss that to the side. So again, I'm not a huge fan of using a ton of tools. I don't think it's necessary. When I do my baking, it requires a spoon and a fork. So that's pretty much it. So what I'm going to do, again, the reason why I like using the frozen bananas is they're very, very wet and soggy and very easy to blend and mush up. If you need to use ripe bananas, or you want to use more fresh bananas and not frozen, make sure they're extremely ripe so that you can do this. So again, using a fork, you can also use a potato masher. I'm going to just mush these up into the egg mixture, trying to get as few lumps as possible. I like to kind of mush it against the side of the wall, the wall of the bowl, I guess you'd say. It helps to just kind of give me a hard surface to break it up as much as possible. It'll break up further when I add the dry ingredients. So that's good enough for now. Most of the lumps are gone. They're only small lumps. So I'm going to put that to the side. So now we're going to add the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients. Some people like to mix their dry ingredients separate, and for some recipes I totally agree that's necessary, but this one's such an easy recipe and so forgivable, I never bother. So I take 2 cups of whole wheat flour. I take 1 teaspoon, where's my teaspoon? 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Make sure all the things are really level baking. I use the top of the box to level the spoon. So 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of salt. I try and use sea salt whenever I can. This one I level with my finger into the sink so it's even, and I pour that in. Then I use the cups that everybody has as a mom, the applesauce cups. I've even used the flavored ones, when you buy something new for the kids and they say, "Ooh, I hate it, I'm never going to eat that." I save them for this. This works out to be, if you buy larger containers of applesauce, this works out to be about 1/3 a cup of applesauce. So put it in. I use unsweetened always. So 1/3 a cup of applesauce, and that, I have one more ingredient. I have 3/4 cup of sugar. Sometimes I use cane sugar. If you're more inclined to use cane sugar, go ahead. This one here, I'm not so worried about perfection in measuring. So 3/4 cup of sugar. And I should have mentioned, the reason why I've used applesauce in order to and put inside a banana bread is it replaces fat. One of the reasons I like this recipe so much is that often when you go to a Starbucks or you go to a bakery, those banana breads are very moist, and the reason why is because they're loaded with oil. The applesauce is a really great substitute to try and make things healthier, and you can use this kind of trick to replace oil in a lot of different recipes. I've done it in muffins, done it in cakes, you can do it in cookies, so lots of opportunity to try out the applesauce trick. So now I'm going to mix the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients. Now you'll notice that it's rather thick. It's thicker than I would like for bread of any kind, really. Now, the reason why I haven't added any water yet, you'll see water in my recipe, is because when bananas freeze, depending on how ripe they were to begin with and how long they've been in the freezer, the water content will differ. So it's easier to add water than to take too much water out of a recipe. Okay, so I like to start slow. So based on what I've seen, and I made a banana bread earlier today, so I know what these bananas will do, I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of water. You can add a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup, but I'm going to show you the texture that you're going for. You want it to be still a thick batter, but you want it to be pourable, loose enough that you could pour it into a loaf pan. So see how I've loosened up the batter? That's actually perfect. So we want it to just kind of be a little bit that I can put a fork through it easily. Okay. So now what do we have to do? Of course, we've got to add the chocolate chips. So I add about a 1/2 cup of chocolate chips. You don't want it to be a whole chocolate loaf. You just want it to be enough that the kids will see and identify it as a chocolate chip loaf. And it's dotted throughout the batter. So again, we're just going to barely mix that. Okay, so now that I've got the batter all mixed, we're going to prepare the loaf pan. So the loaf pan, again, I think I've mentioned, just to be safe in case I haven't, the oven has been preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I have just your standard loaf pan here. This recipe doubles very, very well, so if you want to prepare 2 loaf pans, you could do that at this time. And I put parchment paper in. Now, as you can see, the parchment paper doesn't want to sit inside. So I have a spoon here. All I do is just add some weight. So I just throw in a little bit of the batter, maybe 2 heaping spoonfuls at the batter. Now it sits nice and fine. So this way we know that when we pull out the loaf, it's not going to be sticking to the sides. It'll come out really easy. Now the final step is, I like to pour it like this. We're just going to empty the contents of the bowl evenly into the prepared loaf pan. And I'm going to just spread it out to make sure that all the corners, that the batter is evenly into all the corners of the pan, so that we've got a proper loaf. And then just to decorate it, I'm going to add a few chocolate chips just to the top, just to make it look pretty. You can also add walnuts or any kind of nut, like pecans. Some people like nuts in their banana bread. I'm not a huge fan, neither are my kids, so chocolate chips is the way that we go. But now that that's all done, I'm going to bake this for about 50 minutes to an hour in the oven at, again, 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And what will happen is it'll start to rise, and it's going to start to crack a little bit on the top and start to brown. When it starts to get about a medium brown, that's when I start to bring out a toothpick and just test the center. So I'll show you that in just a minute, but let me get this in the oven first, okay? Okay, so now we have the banana bread. It's all done. And what I wanted to show you is just kind of how it looks. So you've got the nice split down the center where it's broken open. As it's cooking, you've got some nice melted, sort of semi-melted chocolate chips on top and a nice crispy golden brown. Now it's not dry inside because I take it out right when it starts to look like this, a little medium brown. And then to know it's done for sure, you just put a skewer. I like to put a large one because it's a deep loaf. And make sure the skewer comes out clean, and you know that there you have it. So I like to let it rest for about 10 minutes before I let the kids dig in because we don't want them to burn their hands. But just toss it out, lift it out, whatever works for you, and then just slice. You can serve it with butter. You can also freeze this very, very well if you like to make a double loaf, which is what I usually do. So to do that, when the bread is completely cooled, you just would wrap it up in saran wrap very, very tight. I like to use 2 layers of saran wrap and then place it in the freezer for up to 2 months, but I guarantee it won't last that long. So enjoy. I really hope that you have had a chance to, or I hope you go out and try this banana bread. I'd love to hear your comments below. If you can tell me what your kids thought or what you thought, it always helps to know that people enjoy my recipes. If you have any suggestions for any other recipes you'd like me to tackle in the future, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you next time.